See if you can hear us. Yep.
Are you recording?
We are live stream right now, just because we're testing it. Yes. And the mics are on.
Find out.
Yeah, it'll still pick it up. We won't hear anything in here. That's why. So sound works. Good. Do you want me to mute again?
Yeah.
Very good.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our regular council meeting. It is 7 o'clock, and I will call this meeting to order. Before we go too much further, I'm going to ask everyone to rise and observe a moment of silence in the memory of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. So please join me. Thank you for that. We're going to move on and ask for disclosures of pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof. Seeing none noted. Move on with section 3, review of items not listed on the agenda. Thomas?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we have a few items tonight. First, I would note that items 13.11E and F from the office of MP Karen Vecchio regarding the open houses for the redistribution of federal districts have been removed from the agenda as these open houses have been postponed until further notice. We have report 13.2G, which is report CAO 47 2020 or 22 regarding the 2023 insurance update. Item 13.2H, CAO 5122 regarding the RFP results from the County of Elgin RFP 2022 P36 Integrity Commissioner Services with closed meeting investigator and ombudsman options. And 13.2I, which is report CAO 5222 regarding curbside waste disposal contract, Norfolk Disposal.
Thank you. Moving on to section 4. Are there any announcements from council members this evening? Councilor Prose.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to welcome the WWW world. And I do have to say the last 2 or 3 months have been very peaceful after the time we were all on YouTube during COVID. And I would like to just wish for the Bayham residents to listen to the spoken word, read the written word, and please don't misinterpret on Facebook. We are here to serve Bayham, and if anybody has a doubt whether this horseshoe has the best interest of Bayham at heart, please call us in person. Our numbers are online. We love Bayham and we try to do the best for Bayham. So can we just please respect what is said and what is written and not misinterpret, and rumors turn into gossip turns into lies, and lies are no good for anyone. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Any other announcements from council members? I would simply like to remind everyone that September is the Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. And just keep that in mind. I know we're halfway through the month, but still it's a terrible thing that's out there. The recent statistics that I listened to yesterday suggest that 10,000 kids across Canada deal with childhood cancer on an annual basis. And it's something that hopefully it doesn't touch a lot of us, but it is out there. So keep that in mind. Thomas, you have a few announcements?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just 3 announcements tonight. Just a reminder that the 2022 municipal and school board elections are Monday, October the 24th. Advanced polling dates are also on our website. Applications for election officials close tomorrow. So if anyone is interested in filing an application, you can also file those or find those on our website. And lastly, the all candidates meeting is hosted by the Elmer Express. It's taking place here at the Stratfordville Community Center next Wednesday, September the 21st. Doors at 7 and start at 7:30 p.m. So that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for that. Skipping down to section 7, adoption of the minutes of the previous meetings. We have the regular council meeting held September 1st, 2022. And we have the development charges public meeting held September 1st, 2022. Has everyone had opportunity to peruse those minutes? And if there are no errors or omissions, I would entertain a mover and seconder for the following: that the minutes from the regular council meeting held September 1st, 2022, and the minutes of the development charges public meeting held September 1st, 2022 be approved as presented. Councillor Donald will move, Deputy Mayor Weiser will second. All in favor? That is carried. Moving on down to section 11, physical services, emergency services, 11.2, reports to council. We have item A, report PS 1722 by Ed Rollison, water wastewater operations regarding capital item PW 18 Carson Line Road reconstruction. Good evening, Mr. Rollison.
Good evening, your worship and members of council. The report before you this evening specifically is bringing forward information regarding Carson Line Road reconstruction. This 4.5 kilometer section of road known as PW 18 within our current capital budget was a reconstruction project that was proposed to take place this year. However, the report that I'm bringing forward this evening is suggesting that we may want to reconsider the reconstruction of this section. This is simply due to the fact that the road has not deteriorated to the point that staff originally anticipated when placing Carson Line as a placeholder in the capital budget. I'd just like to discuss just briefly the rationale behind the road reconstruction, characteristics that are utilized to warrant the reconstruction include the review of the horizontal and vertical alignment of the road, surface width and condition, the shoulder widths, structural adequacy, the drainage, as well as maintenance demands. All of those all together, in addition to any safety concerns that may pose for the use of the road, are all taken into consideration. And upon review, recent review of the road, staff can confirm that this 4.5 kilometer road generally falls within the range of what's called a class 3 or fair condition, as set out within our 2020 asset management plan. So with that, I think it's important that when we look at capital projects specifically in asset management, and council has heard me say this before, that these projects are clearly about doing the right project at the right time with the right amount of money. So staff would suggest that based on this current review, that this multi-year project that was set out to take place to start in 2022 be reconsidered and deferred for reconsideration within our 2025 capital budget possibly. Your worship, that's all for this report. I welcome any questions.
Thank you for that report, Ed. Does any member of council have any questions? Councilor Donald.
Yes, thank you, your worship. For Mr. Rosen, through you. I just wondered, Ed, this all meets standards for through the guidelines that you have for our roads, and that's giving you the go ahead to make this readjustment.
Through your worship, yes. So when we talk about the road works or roads maintenance, it falls within the minimum maintenance standards. So yes, the municipality has obligations under minimum maintenance standards to maintain the road, and certainly we are doing so. And to recommend to reconsider this at a further time, we're certainly comfortable with the review, with the experience that staff has reviewing the roads. We have no problems with recommending this. We have no safety concerns, and we feel that this is a recommendation to move forward with.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Councilor Froese.
Just a comment, maybe?
Mhm.
Amazing. It's not a report you hear every day or in 4 years. Thank you very much.
And now the shoe drops. Have you got an alternative project in mind?
Your worship, for this year, no, we're not suggesting that we do a trade-off. There are certainly other roads that are deteriorating much quicker than we anticipated in comparison to Carson Line. Those are certainly being addressed in the draft budget that will be coming forward in the coming month.
Thank you for that. Seeing nothing further, we have a motion that reads that report PS 1722 regarding the capital item number PW 18 Carson Line Road reconstruction to be received for information. And that capital item number PW 18 Carson Line Road reconstruction be deferred from the 2022 capital works budget and be reconsidered as a 2025 capital works project. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Chilcott and Deputy Mayor Weisler. Well, second, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We'll get in the groove yet. Moving on to section 12, development services, sustainability and conservation, 12.1 correspondence and 12.1.1 to receive for information. Item A, notice of passing of zoning bylaw number Z750 2022 Jiggins. Item B, notice of passing of zoning bylaw number Z749 2022 Zimic. Item C, notice of refusal of zoning bylaw amendment application ZBA 1822 Blatz. Item D, notice of adoption of official plan amendment number 28, Vienna Farms Limited. And item E, notice of adoption of official plan amendment number 29, Bonneville. Does anyone have any questions or concerns with any of these pieces of correspondence? If not, I would entertain a mover and seconder that the items 12.1A through E be received for information. Councillor Froese will move and Councillor Donald will second. All in favor? That is carried. Section 12.2 reports to council. Item A, report DS 5222 by Margaret Underhill, Deputy Clerk Planning Coordinator regarding zoning bylaw housekeeping amendment. Good evening, Mark.
Good evening, Your Worship and Council. So the report before you is to deal with a housekeeping amendment to our zoning bylaw. We have found that between our 5-year zoning bylaw review and our 10-year comprehensive review, there are times where we have to do some updates, either typographical fixes or grammatical fixes, or just policies that need to be changed because there's been public input or there's been realization that we need to change something from applications that we've been receiving. So that's what this report is about. And that's what this draft zoning bylaw is addressing. So it's quite comprehensive. There's quite a few amendments that staff have accumulated over the last couple of years. And so it's before you for consideration. The recommendation is, of course, to give it your consideration and to pass the zoning bylaw Z 751 2022 to put these amendments into place. So I will leave it with you, Your Worship, and I'm open for questions.
Thank you for that, Mark. Any questions for staff? I will admit it's quite comprehensive. There are a lot of material covered. I'll kick off one of the questions. Anything that's existing would not be affected by this bylaw?
No, existing is existing.
Thank you. The reason I ask is I was approached by a smaller farm operation that is existing. It's small. There might be a grain storage facility on it. Wondered if this was going to have an impact on it. But I don't think it will.
It's already there, already existing.
Would it preclude expansion?
Well, it would be a new application. So new
Yes.
applications have to be aware and cognizant of the regulations of the day.
Absolutely. I guess what I'm
So-
getting at is if it's an expansion, putting up another grain bin or something on the property which would require a permit, be captured under this bylaw.
If there are any of the amendments that affect that or the zoning bylaw of today, yes, it would be affected, yes.
Looking to council for any other questions? Councilor Chilcott, I recall a couple of meetings ago, you had a question regarding length of stay within trailers.
Yes, I did. Thank you. I was wondering if we could lengthen the amount of time they could stay in a trailer for like a vacation. We had 7 days, but a lot of people come for 10 or something like that if they're staying for vacation. So I thought that 1 week was too short.
Can I ask a question? Well, I guess I can ask a question. I will, yes. Are you referring to occupancy within a zoned area such as a provincial park or a zone for camping or in a
No.
yard?
No, they were talking about in the yards, driveways, that type of thing.
Okay,
Because if it's on your property and somebody's staying in it, they can only stay for a 7-day term. But if they come for 10 days, or the 3 days that they can't stay. I know we have family from overseas.
I see.
They come, so that was just a question that I asked. Sure, I'm not the only one.
Trying.
So if I may, Your Worship, that is referring to recreational vehicle, use of recreational vehicles. And that is, depending which document you wish to look at, the draft zoning bylaw. It's under number 16 of the amendments. And this has been an item that has shown up on the list of bylaw enforcement. I will add that to council. our bylaw officer has dealt with a few complaints of trailers being used for extended periods of stay when they're parked in someone's driveway. That's not the intent of trailers. The intent is to be in a campground, but we do acknowledge there is the occasional time that family members wish to house other family members, so we appreciate that. The time frame of 7, if council wishes to extend that, that is at council's discretion. It is strictly to be a means of having some control over the use of these type of vehicles and not being used for long-term accommodations on private property. So I
Mark,
will
what's
leave that with
what's
you.
the current bylaw speak to?
7 days.
No, that's what this is here, the current.
Yes, it's
What-
7 days, except the wording of this has changed a bit to say
Not more than.
not more than 1 7 consecutive day period in 1 calendar year. It was not clear or is not clear currently in our zoning bylaw. So there was a little bit of misunderstanding on that part. So we're trying to clarify the language.
Well, what's council think? Council Pros.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to support the 10-day thing. To expand it to 10
That's consecutive 10 days
per calendar year.
per calendar year.
Yes.
Do you have any comment on that, Mark? Is there any impacts that we're not seeing if that's expanded to 10 days?
Your worship, I don't see a huge impact from 7 to 10. I mean, it's totally at council's discretion if you want to pick a number. It does come down to enforcement.
Yes.
Either way, whether it's 7 or 10 or 14. It does come down to enforcement. That's the ultimate, but the time frame is totally up to you. So,
We have consensus around council. Okay. Can we capture that through an amended motion?
Mr. Mayor.
through your worship, I think we could say that if that's the only amendment that we're going to consider, then it's passed as amended. So zoning bylaws at
Right.
751, 2022 as amended. And we note the change. Would that be
I think
suitable,
it would
CA?
be sufficient if we pass the motion for your report as it's written, and then when it comes to adopting the bylaws, it's
Yep.
adopted as amended.
Right.
Yes.
Meanwhile, Deputy Mayor, you had a question?
Yes, thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. Margaret, there's some changes, tweaking in the wording of the daycare centers for in-home daycare. I'm just to clarify, obviously, we're expecting that everything has gone through the provincial guidelines. But are we just removing the age gap so that it's allowing for seniors now and persons with disability? Is that the crux of the recommended change?
Through your worship, yes, it's expanded wording.
Okay.
Anything further from council? Okay, Thomas, you have a motion for us?
The motion would be as drafted. Mr. Mayor, there is no change to that one. The change would be to when the bylaw is formally adopted under the bylaw section of the
All right.
agenda.
Then the motion would read that staff report DS 5222 regarding the housekeeping zoning bylaw amendment for the municipality of Bayham be received for information. And that pursuant to Planning Act Regulations Bill 73 Smart Growth for Our Communities Act 2015. It be pointed out that at the public participation meeting held July the 21st, 2022, associated with the amendments. No written submissions were received before or after the public meeting, and that all considerations regarding this matter were taken into account in council's decision passing this resolution. And that zoning bylaw number Z 456/2003 as amended be further amended. And that zoning bylaw number Z 751/2022 be presented to council for enactment. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Chilcott will move. Councillor Froese will second. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
Moving on with section 13, finance and administration, 13.1 correspondence, and 13.1.1 to receive for information. Item A, the town of Kingsville regarding opposition to Bill 3, Strong Mayors Building Homes Act 2022. Item B, County of Elgin regarding the community grant program. Item C, County of Elgin regarding the September 2022 newsletter. Item D, Municipality of Bayham regarding notice of upcoming changes to procedural bylaw. And item E, Suzanne Schlotzhauer regarding stormwater system funding options. Does anyone have any particular item of correspondence they wish to draw attention to? Yes, Deputy Mayor Weiser.
Yes, thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. Just number B, County of Elgin, the grant program.
Mhm.
I just think it'd be prudent to make sure everyone is aware that that program is eligible for anyone operating a nonprofit organization. You can apply for funding to the County of Elgin, and the deadline is November the 10th, so it's coming up. So it's definitely worthwhile to take a look at that. It's a great program, so.
Well, just to add to that, yes, it is a great program. The county spent some considerable time over the last couple of years reformatting and relaunching the program. But still, if you're interested, I would advise the public to take a look at it fairly quickly. It is a bit of trying to simplify it, but still it takes a little bit of to get through the application process. I would ask staff, is this posted on our website?
The intent was to post it after council receives it, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Any other items? Yes, Councilor Down.
Yes, thank you, Worship. Just a comment about the community grant. Would that also be put out on the Voyant Alert?
Once posted on the website, it would be treated like other blog posts. It would be sent out to Voyant as well. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other piece of correspondence? I would note that the correspondence received from, I always have problems pronouncing her name, Suzanne, regarding the stormwater systems funding options, I assume would be probably considered in conjunction with the report coming forward from the treasurer. Just to keep in mind.
Yes.
So seeing no other interest in these items, I would ask for a mover and seconder that items 13.1.1, items A through E be received for information. Councillor Donald will move, Councillor Chilcott will second. All in favor? That's carried. 13.2, reports to council. Item A, report TR 1322 by Lauren James, Treasurer, regarding the 2022 fiscal outlook report. Evening, Lauren.
Good evening, your worship, members of council. Before you is the first of three reports tonight in the finance department. So, a little used to this, get used to this for a second. First one, TR 13. So this is similar to what we had in the first half of the year, where basically we did a fiscal update. This is something I think it's prudent for council to have going forward, on top of the 4 annual and quarter reports, having 2 fiscal snapshots that kind of outline items that are outside of a standard quarterly report. So first one is, right now municipality is exceptionally in a good short-term cash position and well-positioned to identify capital grants, whether it's in stormwater, roads, or core infrastructure. So that money is ready, so applications and shovel-ready projects are ready to roll. First one is coming up in the end of Q3, Once council has consideration, the water and wastewater DC will be ready to be adopted. So that's a further step in the process that we started 2 months ago. In addition, there's an opportunity for council consideration for another short-term GIC. Recently, the Bank of Canada raised interest rates again. With discussions with our RBC account manager, the quoted rate and the negotiated rate that we can do for a 1-year GIC is 4.79, which we can execute tomorrow if council gives direction, and that would be for $500,000. However, there is a few headwinds that council needs to consider. The first one is, yes, we've seen positive building growth, but it has been slowing due to the counterbalancing of interest rates going up. That's one headwind to consider. Also, the Bank of Canada is going to be on a path of continuing raising interest rates to get core inflation to 2 to 3% target. Both the Federal Reserve will be doing similar actions in the United States. So again, there's going to be some fiscal tightening, both monetary and on the mortgage lending side. So that will impact assessment growth. And one consideration for MPAC come out of the last MPAC meeting the treasurers had was MPAC hasn't made a decision on when they're going to review the book. So what that means is if you built in 2022, you get 2016 valuation. So you get a holiday on the current value of the property back to 2016 construction costs, not 22. That's a huge tax imbalance. So we are now 6 years out since the book has been reviewed. So there's a day of roost coming when the book is done, and definitely a shift, but there has been a long time coming on that. Like with every business, that's including a municipality, our defined targets of our business or our segments have been seeing cost inflation still going on in the second and the third quarter. It's going to have an impact when we do the draft operating in January, as well as when we present the draft capital in the next month and a half. One other thing for council to consider, and I know it's an offing item, but it will happen in March 25. Based on the current today's debt rates, to renew Project Ojibwe at the same blended interest rate payment, we're going to have additional 10 more years of service life. So what that means is we have another 3.35 million of debt and interest to carry over the term of this project. So when that is up for consideration in March of 25, council today will have to consider longer term, higher payment, or possibly executing the payment. So that is one thing to keep in consideration because there is reports later tonight that impact our debt capacity and our ARL. Other than that, the reports for receipt information as well as direction on if council wants to do another $500,000 on a GIC.
Thank you for that. Any questions for staff? Deputy Mayor Weisler.
Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. I see that, Lauren, I see you're recommending a 1-year GIC. So do you see any risk in the next year that would, that would prohibit us from putting that money away?
In the situation of doing a 1-year GIC, similar to what we did in July, there's only 2 reasons. One, identifying that we don't have any capital cash needs in the next 12 months. 2, and there is no immediate capital grants that require that capital outlay until we start doing the works here. And that lines up with the first GIC. So yes, we would like to have applications and grants out there, but there's nothing that's pending that needs cash immediately to inject it to get the project off. So it's more or less improve our interest rate return rather than sitting in the operating account. But by keeping it only at 1 year, that gives us flexibility that when there's a shovel-ready project or an application or cash to get something off the ground, whether it's to start a project or to start to move on different applications, then we have the cash to get it off the ground. Because when you commit to a provincial or federal grant, they don't cash flow you for sometimes to 100 to 180 days. So we have to carry all those expenses while we carry the receivable.
Councilor Froze.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. More of a comment as far as Ojibwe is concerned. In my experience in private business is do everything we can for 2025 to pay the damn thing off and stop making the residents of Bayham suffer with higher interest rates coming up.
to answer Councillor Frose's comments, there's some prudency to paying it off, because if we're going to take on new debt, we can get a much favorable, cheaper rate through Infrastructure Ontario lending facilities for capital grants. Whereas council remembers that is not a capital grant in nature, it doesn't qualify. So it would be prudent to reduce the interest carrying side. Remind council there is money been put away into the Ojibwe reserve account. And it would also be prudent that when we come to consider the year-end surplus or deficit, if any year-end surplus is on the table, that should be one of the first avenues to be funded, as well as any future special one-time levies in the year of renewal for consideration if you want to do a larger balloon payment. But again, that'll be presented to council 6 months and 3 months before the debt renewal date.
Anything else? All right. The motion reads, the staff report TR 1322 regarding the 2022 fiscal outlook report be received for information. And that council, well, you ready to commit the $500,000 to the investment? I think it's prudent to do.
Absolutely.
You got the,
I do have some language there, Mr. Mayor. Second part of the motion would be, and that the treasurer be directed to invest an additional $500,000 into a one-year GIC within 5 business days.
mover and seconder. Councilor Donald and Councilor Froze will second. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Item B, report TR 1422 by Lauren James, Treasurer, regarding the 2022-2023 DMAP update.
Thank you, Your Worship. Unfortunately, council is aware we were unsuccessful with our disaster mitigation adaptation fund application. Very frustrating to the senior staff and the council. I will comment that the senior staff, as well as the outside consultants, did a tremendous amount of work. And I really feel that we were at the last point on the line to get it. However, there's lots of good things that have already been accomplished inside this work. And there's lots of things for council to consider with the potential stormwater works in Burwell. So first off, unfortunately, the costs have increased. When we originally identified this work in 2017, 2016 through the AMP, it was approximately 17 million. Today that cost lies at 37 million. $20 million we've lost in appreciated value of those assets in 5 years. One item for council to consider is, will this project eventually be a runaway as costs keep going up? Because if inflation and core inflation doesn't soon come down, eventually this project will be considered a runaway project and it won't even be affordable on any level, support or not support. So the first table highlights the phases and the costs, both from Brock and Eries, Pitt, Victoria and Elizabeth, Robinson and Wellington, Eries and Strachan, Shakespeare and Newton, Milton, Waterloo. Phase 5 includes William, Hannah, McNeil, Elizabeth, Victoria, and finally phase 6, Addison, Libby, Burwell, Tennyson, South A, Copper, Homer, and Fay. Funding options. So this is our second style of formal grant application we've done for these programs. Previously, we used the Clean Water Wastewater Fund. However, that project is no longer, program is no longer eligible for these kind of applications. So we really were hoping to get the DMAP application. Unfortunately, that's not the case, and there's not a second intake right now on the DMAP to reapply. As well as the province has changed. Originally, we had an OSIP application formula back in the day. Council aware that was the application that was used to be the primary funding for the Richmond water system. It was funded predominantly from that and then from the remaining water users of the system, not from the general levy, not from the other water users. That was funded from the OSIF application. So right now there's no grant applications to immediately apply for. However, staff are continually looking weekly, both from correspondence from AMO, both from correspondence from the different finance and municipal clerk forms and different stuff, applications that we can come up, we can assess. That's the great thing of having a 10-year capital budget. We have a living working document that helps us immediately identify capital works. As you'll see later tonight, we've identified it on a potential grant coming up with Thomas's report. So how do we move this project forward? Well, municipality first off needs to consider own source funding of this project. What that means? Well, that means that in addition of needing upper level support, both provincially and federally, municipality is going to have to bring in own source revenues. What are these own source revenues? Well, first consideration will be a special area rate. Why are we considering a special area versus the general tax levy? Well, there's two reasons. One, the users defined in the watershed are the ones that are primary benefit, not the general public. The general public only benefits based on the road and the road assessment. And that number is pegged at 10.4 million. So if we have a ratepayer who is in Ward 2, Ward 3, or Ward 1 and doesn't have any water or wastewater services, there is no benefit to him whether this project gets completed or not. And it also is not fair and equitable to people who had to pay for municipal drains that run through their property and had to pay drainage assessment. And those bills for those landowners can range anywhere from $2,000 to $3,000 to sum up to $80,000 to $90,000, depending on the size and scope of the land that the drain runs through. So again, this is a matter of user paid and road assessment based on the drainage assessment. So that's the first consideration. Now, obviously, there is debate out there about why we're not using a general tax levy. Well, Mr. Scanlon presented to council back in November 15th, 2021. He presented a special area rate and a general levy. He didn't recommend a general levy. He didn't recommend a special area rate. He talked about both. And he only talked about the high level of what the potential tax levy burden could be. However, as council has been identified in the report, the general levy is picking up 10.4 million, $37 million of works based on the road levy assessment. There are other borrowing users to benefit from this works, but the defined users in the watershed, the users that are created from the new storm sewer capacity generated from the wastewater system, as well as any other users in that watershed defined area. Those are the benefiting users. How does this impact BAM going forward? Well, unfortunately, with the interest rates that have went up, it's also crippled and reduced our ARL. Currently, the BAM could consider up to 14.5 million in debenture offerings. But this doesn't get us to where we need to be, of a $37 million project. So own source revenues have to be considered. Both from when the application, it was one of the main criteria of consideration of having own source revenues in play, not only relying on upper levels of grants. So there is going to be an impact to the residents in the area on special area rate. It's projected to be 500 to 750, depending on the average house. Now, in consideration, some are going to say, no, it seems much higher. There's other properties down there that have different assessment class and different weightings. So it's more prudent for council to direct staff to engage Watson to do the study report so we can have the defined nature for each of the property classes in that defined area. In addition, developing the stormwater development charge for the new users that are going to need the system capacity is prudent. This also can be directed through staff to have Watson Associates bring back this background study. Then we come to our road apportionments. From a high level review, we have John Spreet, who's been our engineer here, who's also handled our drainage assessment for years for the municipality. He's identified that BAM's portion is 10.4. So you're going to say, what are we talking about in that 10.4? We're talking the road, we're talking the sidewalk, we're talking the street saving, we're talking the above ground, not private property infrastructure. And then additionally, we also have some county road apportionment. That'll be this discussion both from the mayor and going forward, how the county handles their road rationalization in future years. But our current debt financing cannot get us there. So staff tonight are looking for A, direction, and B, direction to engage Watson and Associates to come back with a background study on a special area rate and a stormwater development charge study. At that time for council to consider if they want to adopt and whether they want to consider forward the capital works of this project.
Thank you for that report. Any comments or questions from council members? Yes, Council Pros.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Do you have any idea the price of the study?
The study that we just did for the water wastewater, we were quoted 1525. So we're probably in that 20 to 30 because there's going to be a secondary. I would imagine the stormwater will be very quick because they can work off the previous wastewater data. They have done a little bit of preliminary background with me on the special area rate. So I can't imagine that would take too long. The only factor is are we doing it pre-impact new book? Or are we doing it post new book? And that'll be a timing consideration. Because that does change how the weightings and the structure are.
Anything further? Lauren, you alluded to the fact that perhaps one of the incumbents or the encumbrances, I should say, of being successful with the latest grant application was the fact that we perhaps didn't have a clear identification of what our own source funding would be.
On one of the background requests from the provincial and federal authorities, asked at our current position on own source revenues.
Yes, and we weren't able to provide that because we haven't.
We did
done the
not have a
studies yet.
bylaw in place. We did not have the studies, and we did not have the mechanisms in place
Right.
that have the proper revenue.
So we were slightly ill prepared, but we tried.
Correct.
So going ahead then, I guess what I'm trying to do is paint the picture for council's understanding that if we have the tools in place, we have a better odds of achieving perhaps senior level of government assistance on this project. And it is growing daily. Soon it will be out of reach if we don't take measures to try to tackle this fairly quickly. Okay. And then also just to make the comment that what staff are looking for tonight is simply the authority to go ahead and do these studies and get it done so that we can have the better information so that council can then decide which mechanism or how this blended mechanism is going to work.
And then we can be prepared for a future grant application. We need to improve our preparedness as a consideration as well.
So Councilor Chilcott.
Sorry, this is just a question you may not be able to answer, but what would the impact be? What happens if we go now without getting the impact, and then when impact does their reevaluation, what will happen then?
SAR will likely have to collect the same amount of revenue. It just might just change the weighting between property classes.
Thank you.
Okay. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. Lauren, what's the turnaround or anticipated turnaround time for a report like this?
Anywhere from 60 to 90 days. Watson's is well familiar with both where we're at, so I feel that if we got them the right tools and information in a relatively time frame, maybe 30, 45 days, Thomas, might not be that far along.
I would err on the higher end of that.
He would come back with a brief, and then obviously like the same thing would happen with the storm, with the wastewater. He gave a brief presentation, and then they had 10 days for the backgrounder to submit. So again, you're probably in that 45 really quick, but likely 60 days.
Okay. Motion then reads that staff report TR 1422, the 2022-2023 DMAP update be received for information. And that staff work with Watson and Associates to prepare and present any applicable background works or studies regarding the special area rate for corporal and the municipal stormwater development charge as an own source revenue components and report back to council when appropriate. Do we have a mover and seconder? Councilor Chilcott will move. You have a seconder. Councilor Froze will second. All in favor? That's carried. Item C, report TR 1522 by Lauren James, Treasurer, regarding the 2023 capital budget update. Lauren?
Thank you again, Your Worship. Normally at this time, the capital budget will be posted and available for the public the 1st of September. And we would have generally our first Monday or Tuesday of October and have our big 10-year with all the worksheets. However, with the delay with the DMAF and looking for council direction, staff felt it was prudent to do a delay with a pause. However, as council is aware in the past, we had been really aggressive on getting both our procurement in place before price hikes would happen the following January, and getting contracts and basically the lay of land of our capital works signed up for the next year. So what I'm proposing is on the 4th, which is our standard capital budget meeting, I'll be presenting a memo containing 10 to 15 items for immediate council consideration. So staff can work on getting RFPs, tenders, and the packaging in place. So we can act upon those cost savings and get those stuff locked in for that work that needs to be immediately done. While I have direction that for the DMAF, the capital budget will be soon close to be finished and available for public for review and then for our meeting in December. So just a little bit of a deviation, but it doesn't change our cost structure. It doesn't change the time of other capital works that both impact both Steve and Ed's department. So this basically gets 95% of what we need to procure done. And then the bigger capital works with stormwater, there's the big, the big anchor in our 10-year.
Thank you for that, Lauren. Any questions? All right, I think it's a prudent course to move forward that way. I agree that it's been witnessed over the last several years that by early procurement, we've been able to achieve some cost savings and efficiencies for the repairs. And, I would not want to stall it into the new year where we end up fighting with the herd, so to speak, and trying to get some better pricing. So let's keep the momentum going here. Okay, so that's agreeable with council. The motion reads that staff report TR 1522 regarding the 2023 capital budget update be received for information. Mover and seconder, please. Councilor Chilcott, Deputy Mayor Weiser will second. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Moving on with item D, report CAO 4822 by Thomas Thayer, CO Clerk, regarding investing in Canada infrastructure program, Green Stream Transfer Payment Agreement.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to council, first of 6 reports for me tonight. As council is aware, we applied to the ISIP Green Stream program for the Vienna Water Service Line rehabilitation last year. And in April of this year, the ISIP program did publish the list of successful recipients, of which we were one. To ensure that we can move forward with this project hastily, we have to enter into a transfer payment agreement with ISIP for these works. So this agreement is attached to a bylaw in the bylaw section of the agenda. And then we would recommend that council recommend we bring this forward formally for council consideration. So with that, I'm available for questions.
Thank you for that. Any questions for staff? Hey, Thomas, perhaps maybe we could, I don't know if you can expouse on why, we were notified in April, why we're hearing about it several months later, other than the fact that we had a federal election. We got away and we still haven't had a formal announcement.
Yeah, I'll elaborate a little bit for council. So although we were advised in April, they recommended against any formal contracting or any formal announcements until after the provincial election. And then they're still looking to schedule with us a formal agreement. However, the Infrastructure Canada did reach out to us and request that prior to the end of September, that we have to return to them a ratified agreement, which is kind of contrary to what they've provided us, but we do have to have this in place to them so we can ensure that our tendering in Q1 of 2023 for this project goes forward without a hitch.
Thank you for that. Well, there's a good news story. It's a little bit disappointing. We've had to wait for so long. This will update the service lines in the village of 290 homes and perhaps reduce the water leak and water blowouts that we've been having down there the last couple of years. So looking forward to getting this project going. Okay, if there are no other questions, then I have a motion that report CAO 4822 regarding the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program, Green Stream Transfer Payment Agreement be received for information. And that the appropriate bylaw to authorize a transfer of payment agreement between the Corporation and Municipality of Bayham and Her Majesty the Queen in Right of Ontario, as represented by the Minister of Infrastructure be brought forward for council's consideration. The last time we probably say that.
Probably will be, Mr. Mayor.
Yes. Mover and seconder, Deputy Mayor Weisler and Councillor Chilcott will second. All in favor? That is carried. Item E, report CAO 4922 by Thomas Thayer, CAO clerk, regarding the Enabling Accessibility Fund, small projects.
Thank you once more, Mr. Mayor. This report is regarding a new grant opportunity for accessibility that Treasurer James did allude to. So we were made aware of this project last week. Their intake opened up officially on September the 7th. So this small projects intake of the Enabling Accessibility Fund is for up to $100,000 for, in this case, small construction, renovation, or retrofit of existing spaces to improve accessibility. Projects that are commonly considered by the EAF include ramps, accessible doors, accessible washrooms, elevators, accessible lifts, pool lifts, multi-sensory rooms and stations, and accessible playgrounds. Council will note that we have applied for one of these grants before. This was for the Straffordville lift that we completed in Q3 of last year successfully. So this any project applied for must not take any longer than 24 months to complete, must be accompanied by one external quote. Deadline for submissions is 5 p.m. on November the 1st. So for this particular intake and a discussion with senior staff, we identified capital item FA12, which is the Marine Museum accessible washroom. The above noted item is in the process of being amended for the new capital budget, and it will be noted as FA7, and it will also include an accessible entrance to the Marine Museum. This item would be slated for 2024 to ensure accessibility compliance by January 1, 2025 in accordance with AODA. However, if we are successful with a grant, this would support the capital item and would allow for completion of these works through upper level funding on an earlier timeline. This fund does note that any applicant should self-fund a minimum of 20% of the project. However, the municipality can be exempted from this for small construction, retrofits, renovations of an existing space, which this is. We'll have to provide some digital photography to substantiate this as well, which we can easily provide. So we are looking for council support in applying for this grant. These works are going to have to be completed regardless because this is a public facility and AODA specifies a deadline to have the building accessible. So this is before council for consideration and I am available for questions.
Thank you, Thomas. Any questions? So you take every opportunity you can get. Councilor Donald.
Yes, thank you, your worship. No question, just a comment that I think this is win-win for us
If we can get it.
if we can get it.
Yeah, but it's required to be done anyway. Okay. The motion reads that report CAO 4922 regarding enabling accessibility fund, small projects be received for information, and that council supports an application to the enabling accessibility fund, small projects for an accessible entrance and washroom at the Marine Museum. Mover and seconder. Wow. Councillor Chilcott and Deputy Mayor Weisler, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We have a public meeting coming up in 4 minutes.
5 minutes, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
I do have if council pleases, we could take a look at report CAO 47 instead of looking at the federal rebounder redistribution report for 5 minute recess.
Rather than 5. All right, let's take a 5 minute.
5 minute recess.
5 minute recess.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lauren.
There you go.
Okay, it's 8 PM. We're going to suspend from our regular agenda and move into the quarter revision, which is scheduled for 8 PM. I will call this quarter revision to order, and this deals with the Hampton drain improvements. I will ask the court for any disclosures of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. Seeing none. This evening, we're dealing with the Hampton Drain Notice of Quarter Revision, second sitting. So it's pursuant to section or chapter D17, section 41 of the Drainage Act. The purpose of the quarter revision is to provide an opportunity for any person or body entitled to receive notice to appeal their assessment as per the updated assessment schedule following the first quarter revision held on June 16, 2022. At this time, we'll entertain the staff presentation. That's report DS 5322 by Steve Adams, Manager of Public Works Drainage Superintendent, regarding the Hampton Drain Improvements second quarter revision. Good evening, Steve.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Court. Yeah, threw a bunch of my report out there already. I did want to remind the court. Since the second sitting, the first sitting was June 16th, in accordance to section 46 of the quarter revision. We did receive at that time 2 appeals, from one on May 30th and one on June 6th from Bob Gregson and Scott Gregson, both which are owners at the top end of this drain. Bob Gregson spoke on his behalf and his son Scott's behalf at the first quarter revision. Just a verbal clarification of his written appeal. The court's decision was to proportionally redistribute $30,000 of assessment amount to the Bonneville farmlands. However, Bonneville farmlands was not in attendance, and the meeting quarter revision was adjourned for the adjustment of the assessment. The updated adjustments were sent from the clerk's office August 23rd to all property landowners affected. With a change of date, or the second quarter revision date dated tonight. I believe the assessments are before you, the adjustments. Also tonight, we have 2 appeals sent in by Bob Gregson on August 30th, and correspondence from Scott Gregson as well on September 5th. Correspondence from Scott Gregson indicated on behalf of him, his father Bob can speak, as well as I believe Bob would like to speak on behalf of his appeal tonight, and he's here to join us. Up to the chair, his son Craig, that's also here tonight, has asked to speak on his behalf over a dispute of a piece of parcel on the land. There's a bit of a transition in property at the moment. Obviously, it's up to the court if they wish to allow this. As of right now, the registered land is still in Bob's name. However, the municipal engineer, John Screed, is in front of you here via video tonight. And he and I can hopefully answer any questions. John can also speak on maybe some little more information on the reassessment, how it was done, if council or the court wishes. And I can leave it to you, Mr. Chair, to ask for, we can have them sign in if they wish to speak.
Thank you for that, Steve. Good evening, John. Do you want to take us through the reassessments?
Sure, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. So as per the last court, we were instructed to reduce the outlet assessment by $30,000. We took that $30,000 and we assessed it to the benefit charge of the Bonneville property that contains the pond. And we reduced all the upstream watershed landowners by that $30,000. Now that $30,000 is prorated by the number of acres that you have into the drain. So the net effect is that it reduces everybody's outlet assessment upstream. And that's the chart that you have, or sorry, the revised page 10 that you have says revised for COR quarter revision, June 17th, 2022. So that's essentially what we did. We followed the quarter revisions instructions, and we've reduced the assessments on outlet by $30,000 and added that additional cost to the Bonneville property where the pond was.
Okay, thank you for that, John. Before we go on to public participation, does any member of the court have any questions for staff or our drainage engineer? We're seeing none, then we'll go on to public participation. Now, you mentioned, Steve, that there was a request for participation from a future landowner, but not a current landowner.
Yes.
He is current as of today?
As of September 1st, that was correct.
Okay. All right. Well, I have no grounds to stop you from having a comment. It seems to me that if you're a current landowner, yes, and you're within the watershed, yes, you have every right. So whoever wants to go first, please come in and sign in.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, fellow councilors, Craig Gregson. So as of September the 1st, I took possession of lot 9 at the top end of the drain. So I did not enter a physical letter because of the timing. So I think my father did put a letter in for both lot 9 and lot 10. I agree with what he has said in that letter. And if I could just quickly speak on lot 10 beside it. They've assessed the whole bush for drainage into the Hampton drain. And on the elevation maps, there is a sand ridge that actually runs through here that's quite tall. So this whole lower south portion physically cannot get up over that ridge to drain into that Hampton drain up here. So I don't know if that can ever be looked at again. But as for the lot 9, that water won't make it to that drain. It's all sand. It's never going to make it through surface to that drain. It's got too far to go. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you for that. John, without putting you too much on the spot, it may be acknowledged that surface water may not get there. What about subsurface? It's still within the mapped out watershed, is it not?
Your worship, we only have that area for surface water. So
Water?
the general test is if the ground's frozen, which way will the water run? I know that, it's sandy ground. You'll get infiltration. Let's face it, that's what happens in sand. But generally when they, if you go in front of a tribunal, they will ask you if the ground's frozen, which way will the water run? And the contours in that area do go towards, if you're looking north, they go a bit east from the information I have, your worship.
Okay. All right, thank you, Craig.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to participate? Bob, please come on up and sign in.
Bob will be speaking on Scott.
Yes. Thank you.
First of all, I like that. Is this the same drainage company that was there back in 1969? You know?
John? I don't believe so.
That did the original drain? No.
Anyway, I'll carry on then. If my suggestion is the township get a different drainage company. Stay that right off their front.
Are we talking about drainage company or drain like a
Well,
contractor?
Drainage contractor, well, not just the contract, he works after the drainage people, right?
Right.
And I do not like this company you've hired out of London. They don't know which way water runs yet. My granddad always told me water runs downhill, not uphill. But they don't see it that way. And if you look back here back in 1979, we done this drain. And we went through the same thing as we're going through now. And then in 1982, there was a letter here, just wherever, I got so many pieces of paper here, that the portion of the Hampton Drain upstream of Jackson Road was abandoned pursuant to section 84 and whatever that is, because the water was going the wrong way. So that took 3 years after they put the drain in to find out that the water's going the wrong way. And right now, this last year and a half, there's been water coming up out of the catch basin that's supposed to be going the other way, up out of the catch basin, not down. So I had 3 or 4 acres of rye drowned out this year because the water was coming out of the catch basin instead of going down. Then I got 2 or 3 neighbors that verify that, so that's what I say. I don't know why I'm having to pay an outlet charge when the water's going the wrong way. And I also had that engineer report that I had done back in 1969, I think it was, that says my water goes the other way. So we got 2 drainage contractors saying 2 different things. One says it goes southeast and the other one says it goes southwest. And that's what I'm arguing about. What are we going to do here? Either one of them. So we tiled our field. And right now, if you want to put a catch basin by the township catch basin and hook it into my tile, it'd be a whole lot cheaper for the township to go my way than where it's going now. Plain and simple. And the water will go there because I'm already proving that. Because all this spring I was taking 8 inches out of the Hampton drain coming under the road onto my property, and I'm going southwest with it, soaking into my tile on that. So that's why I would suggest you change drainage companies or whatever and send the water the right way and do it a whole lot cheaper than you're doing it. And I think Steve would even say it would go there. I've got a tile within 50 feet of that catch basin. And it's taken all the water that was coming up out of the catch basin, soaking in the ground into my tile and going to the southwest. So why are we paying to make it go to the southeast? As simple as that. And like I say, my drainage, I've got a drainage report here too, verified by an engineer saying the water goes the other way. So, like I say, they found that out back in 1982 and finally abandoned that drain up there. And why they come back now and done the same thing as they tried to do back then, I don't know.
Okay.
And that's what, like I say, I hate to give the township or it gives the drainage company a whole bunch more money for something is not working. I mean, it's not working in my place. I got a tile in there that is working, going the other way. So how do I do that? If I have to sue somebody, I guess I do, but that'll be my next step because I'm not going to pay money to another to make it go the wrong way. I guess that settles it in summing it up right there, simple. But we know which way the water was running in the spring. It come up out of the catch basin and went into my drain and down to the southwest. And that's where I think it should be going now. And I'd gladly let Steve put a catch basin in there and hook into it and save you a whole lot of money and me a whole lot of money too. So that's something I guess you got to think about. So that's it in a nutshell. I can't say anything more than that. I just don't want to spend money that's going the wrong way. If you want to ask any questions, I try to answer them. And
No, I'm fine. Council? Court, I should say. Any questions?
oh, yeah.
I'll go and ask John, well, you don't have a rebuttal. I don't want to turn this into a circus or anything here, John, but
Well, I mean, I think Steve has some, I've given Steve some drawings. I don't know if he printed any off. There's some sort of contour drawings, sort of show the lay of the land. Steve, do you have those?
Yes, I do, John. I have a copy here for the board. If they want to
this is the contour line. So this ridge here is what they've surveyed to be the highest point. So the dispute between Bob and the engineer is this water. Bob is saying this water runs this way.
Mhm.
Craig was indicating this high point here, the water will run this way. The surveying has indicated that this whole high spot is associated with the drain, the watershed area to flow to the northeast, which will be this drain.
This is the high spot.
Yes,
So it
Water.
slopes that way.
that's right, that's correct.
And so we're going to the northeast.
This is,
Yeah.
this is the watershed that was identified
Okay.
by the engineer.
The close notes on that again?
Yeah. Okay. Jackson line,
Mhm.
Mitchell Road. So Craig was saying this here. On water doesn't go this way, it goes this way. The engineers have identified this is the high ridge. This is the top of the watershed. So water on this side flows into the drain. Water on this side flows to the south.
So he's still within.
Right.
He's still within the
Here,
drain.
that's right.
No, where are the drains that he's ta- or the towns
Right,
that
so
he's talking
this
about?
is the portion that the Gregsons have tiled flowing this way.
How would we get it to flow this way?
They have tiled through the high spot.
By taking it.
Right, that's right.
But this here is still draining over here.
Technically, yes. That's how it's identified, right from Mitchell Road, as the road is also a portion for this too. We did an assessment for that. Mitchell and Jackson.
So what are next steps for him?
So thank you, Steve. So really, the only thing that we can do, I understand Mr. Gregson doesn't want to pay. We have accounted for all his tile water out of the watershed, so we've reduced his assessment by 50%. But, you know, if we really want to have a physical, you know, barrier between these two, a berm needs to be built along the property line. Along the north property line on Jackson line. That's the only possible way that we have that no costs would be assessed to the upstream land. And then we would take the report and we would revise the design, because obviously we wouldn't have to account for that area that comes through that catch basin, and change the size of the tile all the way down and modify the report. But we would physically need a berm along that property line.
I'm sorry, John, was that on the south side of Jackson or on the north?
Sorry, on the south side, your worship.
Yes.
And I don't know if that's something that the landowner wants to entertain.
Well, that's the question. The next question would be, at whose expense would that be? And you're suggesting the landowner to do that, to exempt them from the drain.
Yeah, it wouldn't have to be a, you know, a massive berm, but it would be a berm to stop that water. Steve showed everyone the contours to stop that water from going to that catch basin. That catch basin's backed up onto the land, but that proves there's a connection between, you know, the drain and that property. So you would need to physically build a berm on that side, because I don't think the township wants to lose their drainage outlet on that side of the road.
Correct.
Sorry, the municipality.
Any idea, I'm asking for a snowball idea here of what the cost of such a berm construction would be?
Well, it depends if there's any fill available. If you can get fill available, it's, you know, I don't know if there's any surplus fill out there. I don't think it's a massively expensive undertaking. It'd probably be, you know, 18 inches to 2 feet high. And, you know, you just enough to slope it that you could still farm it after everything was done, your worship.
Okay, thank you. It's a possible solution.
Is that something that the property owner is willing to do?
Well, this is what I was asking, trying to fish for some information. Currently, we're looking at the rejig assessment schedule of roughly $12,000 on the two properties, correct?
Yeah.
Versus, no, that's what it is.
Okay.
Roughly 12,000, 10,000, 10,400, 10,500 on the one, 14, 1,500 on the other. So I was going to ask a question, but I'll go for you first, Councillor Court Member Chilcott.
It's me. Yeah, I just had a question about the berm. Is there a specific way it has to be built? Like, would it have to be inspected to make sure that it met the criteria to keep the water from going to the drain? Or is it just a matter of raising the hill a little bit?
Well, I think John, what he tried to identify is if you had it sloped so that they could still farm it. But the idea was to keep the water from shedding.
Right, but is there any engineering type of criteria to meet to do that?
I'll let Steve or John answer that.
I don't know how to describe it.
Yeah. Through the chair, I think what you're getting at is, I would assume that it would have to be inspected to the point of elevation. So the high end of the property that was identified on the report would have to meet, the Hampton drain is going to flow at a certain depth. The water in this field comes across at a certain elevation. The berm obviously would have to meet the criteria that the water cannot get into before it starts flowing to the south, the other way.
That's what I was trying to get to.
All right. Yes.
Just a curiosity question, is that 18 inches to 2 feet, Steve, in your opinion, or would it be higher?
I believe on the elevation that John sent over, I think we identified it as about what John said there. It was in anywhere from a foot to 2 feet. If that's correct. John.
Yeah, Steve, correct. In that range, it's going to vary as you go along the length of it. But, as you go further west, it'll taper out. But, right by the basin, yeah, it'll be in that range. And Steve, you could inspect the berm if it was built to the standards and verify that for us, Steve?
Yep.
Yes.
Now, would that berm have to be re-inspected on an ongoing basis to ensure that it's still met the criteria?
I would think, it'd probably have to be part of the maintenance program on drain inspections. It would probably be something that should be noted within that the berm was built for the reason and the land was not assessed for the berm because the berm was put in place.
Well, we'll put the questions to the Gregsons. You want to build a berm?
I'm not sure we're talking about this berm being on the south side.
On the south side of the Jackson. South side of the Jackson, on your side.
South side of the Jackson.
Yep.
Is the road not a berm?
Nope. So we have to split your property and municipal property. So it go from Scott's property line, I believe, all the way to pretty much Mitchell Road.
I can't tell you why the road isn't a berm. It's over 2 feet. They could take the culvert out and it's a berm. Am I not? I mean, the road is there. If you took the culvert out going under the road, you've got a berm that's over 2 feet high right now.
So are you okay with the road water running onto your property if we take the
Sure.
drain out?
Yeah. Water ran off the road all its life. It's gonna keep running off the road. That, to me, the road is already a berm, but just take the culvert out and I'd be real happy. Then that water can't come from the south side or from the north side underneath onto my place. And then let him hook into, bring your catch basin up right there and go in my tile. It won't cost you nothing but putting in a catch basin. And that'll take all that water that is there, and more besides.
Right. There's there would be a little bit more to us adding a catch basin. We would obviously have to go through a mutual agreement drain.
Yeah.
If that was the case.
That would be-
However, yes, I mean, the separation of our road allowance to the private property is why the engineer is asking for the berm.
Yeah.
On private property.
I could never figure out why the berm. It's me, the road is the berm. Just take the culvert out and then you've got a berm right there now, more than you need.
Well, this is you'd have to establish a catch basin on the south side of that property to tie into the north.
That's correct.
Mhm. Mhm. So the question then becomes whether you wish the berm to be a municipal roadway or berm on the edge of the roadway.
According to Steve, if you can get an agreement,
Yeah.
let the road be the berm.
It's a mutual agreement.
It's a
It's
mutual
still done
agreement.
through the engineer though. Now
Yeah.
we're, our apportionment for the road over and the mutual agreement also has a different in price, right? We're talking a whole new agreement.
Your worship, if I may say something, the drain that you have would be the Hampton drain would be a higher level of service than tying into the farm tiles. So, you should, I guess, weigh that in your decision.
The Hampton drain would be a higher level service than
Yeah, connecting to a tile and a systematic tile in a farm field.
well, yeah, I couldn't see the municipality connecting into Gregson's private drain. I don't see that.
Right.
So if the court is willing to take that option, then it seems to me you need to establish a catch basin on the south side, drill underneath to tie in to the new drain. I don't see that being any cheaper. Yes, Deputy Mayor, you go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, if the property owners are amenable to building a berm, that removes them from this
That's correct.
breakdown. What does that do to the portion of their assessment? Does that get distributed to the other property owners, or does that just fall off of the assessment altogether?
Through your worship. So what we would do if that was the case, if they are agreeable to build a berm along their property line and their entire, and Steve's inspected it, or out of the watershed, then we would look at the size of the tile first of all, because we have to size the tile for the water that comes into it. So if that water, which is about 7.2 plus 8 hectares, if that water no longer goes into the drain, we may be able to adjust the size of the tile. And then we will reassess the whole drain based on a smaller tile.
I think the question that the deputy mayor was getting at, if that were to happen, does that absolve the Gregsons of any cost other than their berm? Are they still going to be on?
No, if the berm, your worship, if the berm is built to, the standards we specify, they would not be involved in it.
All right. So putting the question again back to the Gregsons, are you willing to build a berm?
If I find out for sure where this berm goes and how much it's gonna be, yes, but right now I'm at a bit of a loss here. I don't know, I can't follow there.
Well, I would assume it'd be a berm that would be along the road allowance on the south side of the Jackson.
You're not too far wrong, on the road allowance?
I would assume along the road
Along
allowance.
the road allowance, not on the road allowance. There's
No,
a
I would
difference
assume-
to me.
So along your north fence there, fence line.
It's just a pile of sand.
Lot 9, I'm good with that.
I'm sorry, Craig?
Lot 9, I'm good with that.
Lot 9's good. Partway there.
Now, not nice, it would be with me too, I guess, so. It's nothing wrong with berm's cheap, a lot cheaper than this assessment.
Have a sand, or we can take sand from.
Yeah, and I got 2 neighbors who'd be glad to give us the sand, and get rid of the hill.
Okay. Would there have to be a mutual agreement in place that our drainage inspector could take a look at it from time to time and examine it? What do you think, John?
Yeah, your worship, I think Steve should have the ability to inspect it from time to time and, ensure that it hasn't washed out or it's still in place. I think that's only fair to everybody else in the watershed because they would be contributing costs to the drainage work, so they would have the right to use that.
Okay, are we approaching a compromise here? Yes, Steve, please.
I throw one more thing. Maybe John can help me with this.
Yeah.
John, should we, we do want to keep moving on this drain? This berm will have to be in place at some time frame, and it should be before, sooner than later, unfortunately. If for the farmers downstream to continue with the drainage project. So do you know, John, is this something we can put a timeline on? Have you experienced that before?
Yeah, well, we would have to, we could put a time on it, definitely. Yeah, we would, if that could be built quickly, we could revise it, get the report back to you, and, we should be able to get it through fairly quickly. You should be able to get back to consideration, Steve, and you'd be able to get it priced.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. You mentioned earlier, John, about the drain reassessing the tile size. Would that change the overall cost of the project?
Through your worship, yes. The tile size, I'd look at it to see if it was smaller, so the overall cost of the project should be reduced.
Just a comment, if I may, then I just see this as a, if the Gregsons are willing to do that, this could be a win-win for everybody. So I'm amenable to approving that.
Yeah. Councilor Chilcott?
I did have one more question. It was based on Rainey's question before. If the berm goes in and we do no further drainage on that property, the cost that was associated with it, is that completely gone, or is it going to be divvied up amongst the rest of the residents that are on there?
Yeah.
Like, are we causing the other residents more money?
I don't have an exact answer for you because I'd have to actually do the calculations, but from my experience, the drain would be smaller in size, so the cost should be reduced. So I don't think it's going to affect others people's costs greatly. It may fluctuate a bit, but I don't think it's going to have a lot of change on it.
So pretty much a wash.
Yeah, their costs really, when you send it back, I start over. I have to reassess everything and go from there. So until you actually work through it, I know that's not the best answer for you, but it's an honest answer. You don't know how it's going to end up, but I do know that the drain will be smaller, so the cost should be, reduced.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything further from anybody? You have. Okay.
I just one more question, if I may, Mr. Mayor, just for clarity, I know we heard from the gallery that lot 9 was amenable, is as long as lot 10 is amenable. We got that okay? Okay, all right. Yep, then I'm good.
Okay, that's good. Now, before we come to a disposition then, has anyone got something crafted?
I'm working on it.
You need a few more minutes?
Give me about 60 seconds. You're almost done.
Okay, all right. This has been one of the more interesting courts that I've participated on. Interesting. Of course, realizing, to the Gregs, should something ever happen that you need to tie into the Hampton, there's going to be a cost there for you guys.
Oh, I'll never want to go to the Hampton.
Okay.
I bought that back in 1979.
I hear you. I understand that, but I just want to make sure that you guys are absolutely clear on this.
That's good.
All right. Okay. I think you're working on 2 reports at once.
It's a lot of Frankensteining here. Okay, I do have something if the board is amenable. The motion would read something to the extent of, I'll just clarify, the type of agreement required is a mutual, what agreement for the berm? Mutual,
You could, if I can, you could say a mutual agreement drain.
just a mutual agreement? Okay.
Yeah.
The motion reads as follows. The report DS 5322, Rehampton Drain Improvements, second sitting of the Court of Revision be received for information. The Court of Revision acknowledged the second appeals received by Bob Gregson and Scott Gregson regarding their assessments being too high, and that the Court of Revision acknowledged the Gregsons' willingness to construct a berm along the Jackson Road allowance on the north side of part lots 9 and 10, which would be subject to a mutual agreement with the municipality and would require inspection from time to time by municipal engineer or designate. And that the Court of Revision for the Hampton Drain Improvements hereby directs the engineer to reassess the benefit and outlet charges on the lands and engineer report 220242 dated March 15, 2022 and revised June 17, 2022 to address the construction of the berm as noted. And that the Court of Revision direct the engineer to resubmit the revised assessment when changes are complete.
All right. Is that a question?
Just a clarification. I'm pretty sure it's south side.
It's south side of the road,
South side
north
of
side of
the
the lot,
North side of the lot,
Sorry,
yes.
you said lot. Thank you.
north side of
Yes.
lots,
Yep.
Just another clarification, it's Jackson Line,
Jackson lot.
not Jackson Road.
I was typing too quickly. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, the rest of the motion stands.
All right, then looking to the court. Are you happy with the motion? And if you are, I would entertain a mover and a seconder. Okay, court member Donald and court member Chilcott will second. All in favor? And that is carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. So now the second sitting of the Court of Revision for the Hampton Drain Improvements be adjourned at 8:38 PM. Mover and seconder, please. Chilcott and Froze moves for seconds. Thank you. All in favor? That's carried. And that was one of the more interesting parts that I've ever been in. Yeah, well, it's the art of the compromise, isn't it not? Okay. Now, returning to our regular agenda, we are left off at item F, which we report the CAO 50/22 by Thomas Thayer, CAO clerk, regarding the proposed redistribution of federal election districts. Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Once more, this report has to do with federal electoral boundary adjustments that were proposed on March the 19th by the Federal Electoral Boundaries Commission for the province of Ontario. These were circulated to the municipalities affected. I won't go through the entire report because it is quite dense, but what I will advise is that the impetus for this was population of Ontario has essentially increased 1.4 million over the last 10 years. So the representation formula for how to determine federal ridings has allocated 122 seats to Ontario, which is an increase from 121, necessitating a redistribution. It's noted that in the Electoral Boundaries Readjustment Act that the commission should consider respecting boundaries of communities of interest, historical pattern of electoral districts in the province, and maintaining a manageable geographic size for electoral districts in sparsely populated areas. The range that they're looking at is they want their electoral districts to be approximately 116,000 population and size. Plus or minus approximately 25%. So this is quite a large buffer. This means that electoral districts can range anywhere from about 87,000 to about 146,000 size. The proposal, I do believe there are attachments to this report, notes some quite substantial changes to the currently existing Elgin Middlesex riding. Currently, the Elgin Middlesex riding has, it includes St. Thomas, Elgin County, and the municipality of Thames Center, the eastern end of Middlesex County. The revised is quite a bit larger than that. So while there are no direct effects to the geographical boundaries in Bayham, the new Elgin Middlesex Thames riding would see that St. Thomas, half of central Elgin, and about 10%, 15% of South Wold would be removed to join the South London St. Thomas riding. And the new riding for London Middlesex Thames would include the balance of Elgin County, a portion of Thames Center, a portion of Zora in Oxford County, the entirety of Western Middlesex County, a portion of Chatham Kent, and a portion of the eastern edge of Lambton County. So they're based upon that, there's really no credence given to existing upper tier boundaries or lower tier boundaries. It seems like it's more or less random, and I'm not entirely sure how to interpret it, but I know that municipalities across Elgin County all have very similar opposition to this. The other portion of this is obviously St. Thomas would be joining up with London. The idea that London would go 3 ridings to 4 ridings. And as St. Thomas is part of the census metropolitan area for the city of London, St. Thomas would be included, including portions of central Elgin and South Wold. So the high level is that there are public hearings for our region as noted in the report. There's an in-person on what happens to be municipal election day, so that it really isn't easy for us to attend in person when the majority of clerk's office staff will be busier doing other things. But there is a virtual hearing on Tuesday, September the 27th at 6:30. And all persons wishing to make oral submission in opposition to the changes may do so. I am aware of other municipalities in Elgin County that are opposing this and are looking to do similar, and recognizing that there are no geographical impacts to Bayham. It would be recommended that we stand with our neighbors, and the analysis notes a few reasons why it would be reasonable to do so. The proposed Elgin Middlesex Thames district is roughly 80% larger than the existing. And that's a problem when it comes to Bayham representation, because it's additional municipalities would then dilute Bayham's voice, and the inclusion of municipalities from other upper tiers would dilute rural Elgin's voice. So there is the consideration there. The other consideration of that is that with one MP serving 80% more land, it's less likely that we would be able to get an audience with the MP and that they would take our issues into consideration to the same degree that they currently do. The other note worthy of bringing up is that historically, Elgin County have had a very close interaction with St. Thomas, particularly with respect to service provision. St. Thomas provides a lot of the social services to Elgin County, including Bayham, which is very important. And having them in a completely different federal district could potentially put us at odds with different viewpoints, and would affect the greater community cohesion that we currently have. So the commission requires that representatives proposing alternative federal riding boundary scenarios must be prepared to indicate to the commission not just the concerns, but to set out alternatives. And there are all alternatives that we can consider. One in particular would be keeping Elgin and St. Thomas and Thames Center as one riding as currently exists. And if the City of London is interested in increasing their representation from 3 ridings to 4 ridings, given that Strathroy is also an urban center within their census metropolitan area, it would be prudent for them to consider inclusion of Middlesex Center and Strathroy Caradoc on the west side of London. And that would give them 4 ridings of approximately 116,000 apiece, while representing existing lower tier and upper tier boundaries and not affecting the current riding as it is with Elgin Middlesex. So there are attachments to this report. This report is very similar to reports being considered by other lower tier municipalities. This one was actually something that was built off of a report from Central Elgin. They're the municipality in Elgin that is being affected the most. And I would be looking for a recommendation from council that we continue to coordinate efforts with Elgin County and the city of St. Thomas to represent our joint interests, and that we develop a written submission for the Federal Electoral Boundaries Commission for the province of Ontario, and submit same to them prior to the deadline. So with that, I am available for questions, and I'll leave it with you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for that report, Thomas. A very similar motion was passed by Elgin County yesterday. Of course, this has, as Thomas has outlined, report profound implications for the Elgin family. Even though, as he indicated, Bayham geographically doesn't change, but our access to perhaps upper tier, or excuse me, federal level representation could be profoundly impacted. And I do want to highlight again, make sure you understand that the social services basket is delivered through the city of St. Thomas on behalf of Elgin County. So it makes it really interesting how that relationship would continue when you might have the possibility of crossing federal jurisdictions. So I think it's just something that I would encourage council to support. And, I'll just leave it to that. And if you have any questions, please, let's have them. You must have done a good job. All right. All right, Deputy
So
Mayor.
close. No, just a comment through you, Mr. Mayor, if I may. Just a comment is I've attended a couple of the public meetings, and I really think it's important that we get behind this, support it, make sure that we have a voice, because we may be small, but we're mighty, and we shouldn't be swallowed up by another 80% in a district. Yeah, it would be very unfortunate to lose St. Thomas. So I think we should really fight for that.
Okay. I'm going to read the motion. The report CAO 5022 regarding the proposed redistribution of federal electoral districts be received for information, and that the municipality of Bayham coordinate efforts with Elgin County and the city of St. Thomas to represent interests and concerns pertaining to the proposed federal electoral boundary districts, and that the municipality of Bayham develop a written submission for the Federal Electoral Boundaries Commission for the province of Ontario, and that the written submission's guiding principle be that the Elgin County and the city of St. Thomas remain full contained and represented within one federal district. Should that be fully contained?
Yes, it should.
Thank you. Is anyone interested in moving? Councillor Donald will move, and Councillor Chilcott will second. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Item G, report CAO 4722 by Thomas Thayer, CAO clerk, regarding the 2023 insurance update.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to bring this forward to council as the renewal for 2023 is approaching, and our current service provider has requested we provide them with renewal documentation prior to October the 1st of this year. Annually, we do provide council with an insurance renewal update with the revised premium. So council will note the motion from last year that the premium was approximately $175,000, and to review insurance coverages and providers in 2022. Based on internal discussions with senior staff, and certain insurance coverages outside of cyber insurance appear to be sufficient for municipal needs at this time. The council was advised in report 5721 that BAM does not carry standalone cyber insurance at this time, and same was not contemplated for the 2022 renewal. However, given the 2022 cyber incident at the city or the county, which affected their infrastructure, staff will be looking into standalone cybersecurity for 2023. Some lower tier municipalities in Elgin do have this coverage at a general cost of $5,000 to $10,000 a year. So given the environment we operate in, it's wise to have something in our back pocket in case something should happen. The municipality does currently receive its municipal insurance coverage through Marsh Canada Limited, who also service Malahide and Elgin County. Based on discussions with our representative, they have provided us with some rough estimates for impacts to specific premiums for 2023, which are indicated below. So general liability is generally about a 7% increase based on market conditions. Umbrella coverage is 10%. Property may be 0 to 8%, but they are advising that any renewal information include a minimum inflationary increase of 10%. And auto's impact is 3 to 4%. So these are substantial increases, and they're born out of the substantial inflationary environment that we're currently in. And given these increases, staff did reach out to the other large corporation that provides for municipal class insurance, which is Intact Public Entities. And they are seeing a lot of the same impacts in their portfolio as well. So this isn't just us, it's municipal across the board. A number of lower tier municipalities in Elgin County are nearing the time when they are going back to market and issuing RFPs for insurance and risk management services. This is, we believe at this time that this could be warranted for the municipality next year. And it's also expected to be a topic of discussion when area CAOs meet tomorrow. So staff at this time are recommending that, given the timelines, that BAM renew with Marsh for 2023. We can continue in that process. Documentation, as noted, due end of September, and it is functionally too late to in the calendar year to issue an RFP for insurance services. So when the renewal premium is known, a follow-up report will come to council for direction, and staff at that time will also seek direction to go to market in 2023 for the 2024 renewal. When the municipality issued the RFP in 2019 for their general insurance and risk management program, they engaged the services of Joy Jackson from Cunard Associates. She has advised that she is unable to assist this year, but does have availability for next year. So we will do the same, as she is quite familiar with our portfolio and the 2019 RFP issue. So with that, the recommendation is to receive this for information. Staff will proceed as we go. And if there's any way that we can reduce our premium, whether it's we start looking into self-insuring some things, or whether it's a higher deductible in some instances to bring down our premium, we'll be looking at that as well to get the best value for the municipality. But again, it is looking like insurance it's not cheap. It's not cheap. It's still going up. So with that, I will leave that with you, Mr. Mayor. I am available for questions.
Thank you for that. So you see what's coming forward. Do you have any questions for staff at this point? Yes, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. I know the market is quite narrow when it comes to municipal insurance. Have we heard any rumblings on the radar of maybe new companies coming forward willing to offer this?
No. My understanding is over the last 10 years, have actually decreased the number of companies that do this comprehensive offer. I believe there's only really 2 that do it now, and that would be Intact. I believe that was done through Frank Cowan Brokers, which is one of the ones that had RFP'd or submitted to us for the RFP in 2019. The other one being Marsh, which used to be JLT, so they rebranded. They're the only 2 that I know of at this time, and I believe the only 2 that service Elgin County. So we're doing the best we can, but options are quite limited at this time.
Okay, any further questions? All right. The motion is that report CAO 4722 regarding the 2023 insurance update be received for information. Mover and seconder, Deputy Mayor Weiser, Councillor Chilcott will second. All in favor? That's carried. Item H, report CAO 5122 by Thomas Thayer, CAO Clerk, regarding the RFP results, County of Elgin RFP number 2022 P36 Integrity Commissioner Services with closed meeting investigator and options.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, once more. So as council is aware, we've had the services of Mark McDonald through Independent Resolutions Incorporated as our Integrity Commissioner and closed meeting investigator since 2019, I do believe. And he recently provided his notice that he would no longer be providing these services. He provides service to Elgin County, all lower tiers, save and except for the city of Elmer or the town of Elmer, and he does also provide it to some municipalities in Middlesex County as well. Recognizing this, council received staff report CAO 2822 earlier this year and agreed to participate with Elgin County for the release or issuance of a joint request for proposal for these services. Elgin County took the administrative lead on the RFP draft and issuance, with the process opening on August the 9th and closing on the 26th. The RFP was issued as a cooperative procurement venture. This included Elgin County, St. Thomas, and again, all municipal lower tiers in Elgin County except for the town of Elmer. So each municipality has the option to cross-appoint the same firm under a separate agreement. I have attached the RFP document to this report. And for the discussion purposes, we did receive 3 bids noted in the report. The review panel included the CAO from Elgin County, Julie Gonu, myself, senior counsel from Elgin County, Nicholas Loeb, and Elgin County Manager of Procurement and Risk, Mike Hoopstra. We conducted the reviews on September the 6th. Based upon the reviews, the top 2 submissions, which scored very closely, were invited to present to the review panel on September the 8th. Based upon a comprehensive review, the decision was unanimous that the top bid was that of Eric Burles LLP, team led by lawyer John Mascarin. Their costs are noted in the report. They do not charge a retainer, but their hourly fee is $489.75 per hour, which is quite a bit more than what we currently have in place. So this hopefully is not a surprise to council, because it was noted in the previous staff report that this inflated cost would likely be a reality, given that we got a very, very good deal with independent resolutions. In fact, they often wouldn't charge us for general inquiries and things. And even if they did, that was often picked up by Elgin County, and Elgin County covered our retainer. So there really wasn't a cost hit to BAM. Quantity going forward of integrity commissioner, closed meeting investigator, ombudsman services is contingent on the number of complaints or requests received in a given year. So it's very difficult to place a precise cost on this, but a budget estimate could be considered around $5,000 in an operating expense line. I believe the County of Elgin considered $3,000, so there is a little bit of flexibility there for what we put aside. But at almost $500 an hour, $3,000, $5,000 can get chewed up pretty quickly, especially if there's an investigation. So as the municipality is required by legislation to have an integrity commissioner, and as independent resolutions previously provided integrity commissioner and closed meeting investigator services, staff would recommend an agreement with Aaron Burles for integrity commissioner and closed meeting investigator services only. Council does also have the option to include ombudsman as part of the agreement. Historically, this has been something provided at no cost by the Office of the Ontario Ombudsman. However, should council wish a change, we do have the option to include same with Aaron Burles at the same costing for service. So the attachments are the RFP and the excerpt from the bids and tenders Elgin page regarding access and submission. And I'll leave that with you, Mr. Mayor. But what I would note is that even though there's no retainer, I do believe Elgin County is recommending that the lower tiers would pick up their specific costs with respect to these services going forward, given the cost increase. So it will be a budget implication moving forward. I'm available for questions.
Thank you for that, Thomas. Any questions? Yes, Councilor Chilcott.
Thank you. So you said typically the ombudsman is paid for. So why would we include them in something that we have to pay?
It's through you, Mr. Mayor. It's generally included as an option if municipalities want a more municipal specific approach. Otherwise, the Ontario Ombudsman handles complaints very generally. They usually reach out for copies of bylaws and things, and they aren't as in-depthly aware of how a specific municipality may function or their policies. So they do a little bit more work on the research side of things. The Ombudsman does, but it is a free service if it is still through the Ontario Ombudsman. We are under no obligation to appoint a specific firm for that function, but we are for integrity commissioner, and given historically the integrity commissioner has also been the closed meeting investigator, it's recommended that those two stay parceled as part of one agreement.
Councilor Donald.
Yes, through you. Thank you, Your Worship, through you to Thomas. do we have an average amount of requirement or requests, excuse me, for an integrity commissioner's services?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, these tend to vary quite a bit from year to year, and they depend heavily on whether or not there are, say, contentious issues going on within a specific municipality. So some years there's none. Some years there could be, requests totaling, 15 or 20 hours worth of work. We haven't had an investigation here, so we've been quite lucky. But if there is an investigation, investigations can run $5,000 for even small ones. It doesn't, not through this firm, even through firms that might have a lower hourly rate, for instance. So we've been lucky from that side of things, but it really is quite variable. And since Elgin County, handled a lot of the inquiries and payments themselves, we don't have any specific data that's BAM specific.
Right.
It came up in discussion with Elgin counties.
Okay, anything else? Motion that report CAO 5122 regarding the RFP results, County of Elgin RFP number 2022 P36, Integrity Commissioner Services with closed meeting investigator and ombudsman options be received for information. And the Council of the Corporation and Municipality of Bayham agrees to enter into an agreement with Aird and Burles LLP for Integrity Commissioner and closed meeting investigator services, and that the appropriate authorizing bylaw be brought forward for Council's consideration. Mover and seconder, Deputy Mayor Weiser, Councillor Chilcott will second. All in favor? That's carried. Item I, report CAO 5222 by Thomas Thayer, CAO Clerk, regarding curbside waste disposal contract, Norfolk Disposal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, once more. So this report comes forward for a pair of reasons. The first is that the existing agreement with Norfolk Disposal for curbside waste management is coming to an end. And also the 2023 Blue Box transition that would also impact the same, as we do have an agreement with Norfolk Disposal for both curbside garbage and curbside recycling. So at its March 15th, 2022 meeting, Council received a report on waste management, waste collection RFP, and subsequently approved a bylaw to enter into an agreement with Norfolk Disposal Services for curbside waste management. This agreement was the 8th agreement of its nature with Norfolk since 2001. So we have a very long working relationship with Norfolk Disposal. The municipality of Bayham's agreement with Norfolk for collection of waste and blue box materials is active until June 1st of next year. Additionally, Council at its June 16th meeting this year received staff report from Mr. Adams and directed a 3-month trial for bulk curbside pickup that is being conducted through Norfolk Disposal. And this does have the option, should Council wish at a later date, to continue this program on a more permanent basis, which would continue our relationship with Norfolk Disposal. Council is aware that the Blue Box regulation under the Resource Recovery and Circular Economy Act 2016 came into effect last year, necessitating some changes to the Blue Box program. The Council did pass a motion at the August 18th meeting to opt out of providing or continuing to provide collection services, recycling collection services effective July 1 of 2023. So the above motion would remove the requirement for the municipality to provide curbside recycling services. These all have impacts on our waste management program and contracts going forward with Norfolk Disposal. So 2012 was the last time any sort of formal procurement for waste management was done, and it was a joint venture at the time through Malahide and Central Elgin. The agreement, as noted, was for a 7-year term with options to extend the contract's life through June 1st of 2023. There doesn't appear to be any additional language for any further extensions. And due to the shifting responsibility for blue box collection, an extension would not be recommended, as Council has chosen to opt out of blue box collection effective July of next year. Municipality, as noted, does have a long-standing and successful relationship with Norfolk Disposal across bulk item curbside and curbside garbage and curbside recycling. The staff are interested in continuing this arrangement. So Norfolk Disposal have been providing for these services in some form for, the last 21 years. And we are providing this report as general information. So council is aware of the impending lapse in contracted services. And staff are also seeking council's support to engage Norfolk Disposal in preliminary discussion around the options for a new contract specific to curbside garbage collection as recycling transfers over on July 1 of 2023. And should Norfolk Disposal be amenable, council would have the option of the municipality's procurement policy to either issue an RFP seeking interested proponents or to single source to Norfolk Disposal. So with this, I'm just looking tonight for support from council to conduct those preliminary discussions with Norfolk. If they are amenable, then we would bring forward a contract for council's consideration or further report should council wish to go to RFP instead. So with that, Mr. Mayor, it is with you and I'm available for questions.
Thank you for that, Thomas. Any questions for staff on this report? Councilor Donald.
Thank you, your worship, and through you to Thomas. So if we went for an RFP, we're looking for another company to, or companies.
If we go to RFP, there is the option that Norfolk gets underbid by somebody. Now, it isn't guaranteed, and their level of service also isn't guaranteed either. It's more of an unknown quantity. Malahide does use Miller Waste. They are quite popular in the area as well. It is expected if we RFP, then they would at least bid on anything that we have to issue. So we may end up with 2 bids. But council does also recall that we do have a long-standing relationship with Norfolk, and they have provided great service to us. Have acted reasonably with us when it comes to whatever changes in service we're looking at, specifically with respect to this curbside large item. They've been very willing to work with us on that. So to your question, yes, if we went to RFP, then there is quite possible we end up with multiple bids.
And through your worship again, so with that though, with an RFP, we would not have any idea of what type of service we would receive from.
They would respond to the RFP based upon the RFP we issue. So if it's curbside garbage, we include similar information to 2012, map of pickup locations, various expectations that would populate the RFP for what we're looking for. But their level of service and whether or not we would be happy with their level of service is an unknown quantity.
Thank you. That's what I was looking for. Thank you.
Just to note and highlight again, the last time we did to it or went to an RFP was 2012. After that waste management review with our 2 neighboring municipalities, which was really interesting because all 3 of us went to RFP. We all ended up with our same vendors.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, everyone comfortable? Motion that report CAO 5222 regarding curbside waste disposal contract, Norfolk Disposal be received for information, and that council supports the engagement of Norfolk Disposal Services Limited in discussion regarding a new contract for curbside garbage collection services. Mover and seconder, please. Councilor Donald, Councilor Froese will second. All in favor? That's carried. Section 14, the bylaws. A, bylaw number Z 751/2022, being a bylaw to amend bylaw number Z 456/2003 as amended. It's the housekeeping bylaw. Item B, bylaw number 2022-063, being a bylaw to authorize the execution of a transfer pay agreement between Her Majesty the Queen in the Right of Ontario and the Corporation of the Municipality of Bayham for the Investing Canada Infrastructure Program, Green Stream. So I need a mover and a seconder for the following. You have a quick clarification?
Yes, the report Mark presented regarding the housekeeping is going to require an amendment to the motion for bylaw number Z 751. That has to be adopted as amended. So if you give me 30 seconds, I'm going to quickly amend.
Are you going to amend the amendment?
Yes.
Because there are 2 amendments in there already.
Thomas, can we just put as amended, like bylaw numbers that 75 of 2022 as amended and bylaw 2022-063 read first time.
Yes, you can do that. Yes.
Thank you.
Just right after that. but as amended.
As amended. Thank you. That bylaws numbers Z 751/2022 as amended and 2022-063 be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. Mover and seconder, please. Counselor Donald, Counselor Chilcott will second. All in favor? Carried. There is no unfinished business. No other business. The confirming bylaw number 2022-064 be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. Mover and seconder. Deputy Mayor Weiser, and seconded by Councillor Chilcott. All in favor? That is carried. Which brings us to the adjournment motion that the council meeting be adjourned at 9:11 PM. Mover and second, Councillor Frodes and Councillor Donald will second. All in favor? And we are adjourned. Thank you for coming out tonight.